Good,
Hey,
good morning.
good morning. How are you doing today?
Excellent. How are you, Magnus?
Yeah, well, I'm great. I'm looking forward to the topic of today. So, what are we going to talk about?
I call it the student-teacher relation, but it's such a broad term to something that you triggered. So maybe I'm going to let you explain the starting thought of our talk today.
Oh, well, comparing us to, I decidedly have the opinion or impression that you have done a lot more teaching, like professionally. However, of course, we all do. And I was talking about, when I went to school, it was a lot about the teacher is providing all the teaching, and maybe there was a bit of doing the math exercises yourself by the desk, but yeah, there was a model. It's clearly the teacher is teaching and the student, well, what's the student responsible for anyways? Now I've been participating in some different kind of programs and workshops, and there's a lot of group work, and so when you start examining it, you are starting really to probe into so much of the learning experience and how this goes depend upon the co-creation. There's a lot of background noise now.
Yeah,
There's
some reason a truck decided to pass by.
yeah,
But yeah,
a track path. Well, the co-creative teaching experience,
yeah.
because the participants will create so much of the conversations. And I'm really curious about that because I will be going into a more like substantial teaching assignment in a bit. Well, a couple of weeks, so it depends. Is that much or little? But to me, it's much. So I feel I need to learn. I need to learn how to be a teacher.
From what I hear you say, I you get a lot of things about it already. I really strongly believe that teaching um, is about learning facilitation, and I try to abolish the word trainer, and we use the word trainer because everybody knows what it is, right? But I try to abolish it and change into a concept of a learning facilitator, and instead of pushing all that knowledge to the group, you can pull it from the group and not even pull it towards yourself as a trainer, but to pull the knowledge out and let people share it with each other. Like the phrase that I use is most of the time the combined knowledge of the group is larger than the knowledge of the trainer, and I've experienced this so many times. Um, if you ask, for example, let's if you ask a group, if you think about agile, what are the words that come up? And even people who've never really heard about it, but just think about the concept of agility. Um, you write down the words, and then the group gives you the right answer as a group, right? And that is really powerful. The push pull system, like instead of pushing what we've always seen, how most schools work nowadays, really pulling it and working it and having these, yeah, you call it co-creation and conversation, having these learning forms or learning methods in place and knowing about them to let groups work with that.
Yeah. Huh. Memories come to mind. As in me myself failing to be providing any learning experience at all, like being finding myself being really passionate and actually quite knowledgeable about something. Okay, and then the passion is there, and I want to just share it, I think, and so I do. Eventually, after some time is passing, you can almost start to feel it. There's a disconnect. The passion I have is not the passion that's created in the room after I've spent some time talking. I don't know, 15 minutes or an hour. It didn't work. And I've been there, and now I'm fully aware that this is not the way it works. Even though I might have like some kind of knowledge at depth, uh, the better option is to work the room or have people co-create the learning experience.
Yes.
So how would you shift that if many people are know stuff? What have you learned so far? What is the best way to share knowledge? Like, if I am actually knowledgeable, how would I help my teammates out? If it's like more of that way, or even going slightly more professional and designing workshops, what have you learned, and what have you where have you failed?
Oh yeah.
Where have you
Oh,
succeeded?
let's start there. Where have I failed is I taught the IT service management framework for a couple of years called ITIL. Um,
Oh,
and that was those were certification trainings preparing people for the exam, 3 or 4 days depending on which part of the framework they were learning about. And we did like 300 slides in 3 days or something. That was really dead by PowerPoint, right? And you saw people, you saw the energy being sucked out of the room, and you saw, especially in the afternoon when our blood goes to our digestive system, you really saw people go, and they don't capture it. Even if you're very passionate and super knowledgeable about it, you cannot just keep pushing it. We can concentrate, focused concentration. We can do that for about 25 minutes if people send
oh,
us that. So yeah, but that's how we always thought it worked, right? There was nobody who tell, when you start to give training, there's not a lot of people that tell you like this is right or this is wrong. You have to look that up and go look for it. Um, so maybe going back to what you said, Magnus, I think you said something super important, and I think that is still a core element of trainer or learning facilitation, is that you know what you're talking about, but that's less important than your passion for the topic. Because an energized, passionate teacher will rub off on the group, and I think that's a really really big thing. But that's different than pushing your stuff for about an hour to a group,
oh,
because
hmm.
so that's I think that's a big one. But then moving away from that, I think one of the big things is slicing stuff up, like chunking, like it's the incremental building of your training. Also knowing that people can focus for about 25 minutes. So at what point, how small do I make the training blocks, and how much do I talk, and do I start with talking, or do I let them reflect first and then I bring it back to the theory? So those are all elements to play with, actually, in training.
Hmm. Yeah, I was reflecting on. Thank you. So yeah. So there's someone that thinks it got it. There's an insight happening, and there's a lot of energy and passion. Oh, this is how it works, and this is why it didn't work. And if we only knew this, we would solve the problem. So can I just explain and teach for you? And then yeah. But then, as you say, the passion and the expert, and if these are in the internal team, there's an expert and there's a passion. Well, passion, I don't know. I'm guessing that probably it would be helpful to be a little bit of staying in like an inquiry for myself. So, what do I want to leave these people with? Uh, what's on the top of my priorities? Do I want to raise a curiosity and a love and interest for this particular topic? Or do I want to leave them with a feeling that they need to do a lot of reading or factfulness, and they didn't feel connected and they didn't feel like they were part of it? Because that's where I went wrong. I was saying to myself, for them, because we have the problem that is complex and difficult. But if we only knew this together, the problem would go away. but contradictory to helping people getting rid of the problem and opening up the opportunity, the expert mind kind of overpowered the relationship mind. Does that make sense at all?
It makes
How
a
does it land in
lot
you?
of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Um, it triggers the question: when are you an expert, right? Um, and
Oh,
there's a difference. I think there's an in learning. Learning is a combination of knowledge and ability, and you can have very deep, profound theoretical knowledge, but never applying it would not, for me, that's my opinion, would not necessarily make you an expert on it. You can be well read and well studied, and which is I learned like that. So for me, that really works. But not having applied it would only leave it with theoretical knowledge. So then, and you use the word problem, and I love that. Then you come to a problem statement, because very often in a classroom you go into a concept and you reflect about it as a group, and there's always someone who said, hey, I have in real life this happens, how would you solve it? And most of the time I say I don't know, because I have very limited context about it. But with what you explain, so you can do both things, right? You can say, look, with the experience that I have had and la la la, you tell them a story, or this is how I would do it. But then that really nice thing is to say, put that problem statement in the classroom and let them reflect about it. Like, with what we've learned about this part now, how would you solve it? And then you can still push your passion and your knowledge into the group, but in slight chunks. Um, so there is no all-knowing expert, because you never know all the context and all the complexity and all the elements. You can just probe into it and give your opinion and say give them your possibilities. But what's a lot nicer, that's pushing again, but what's, for me, it works a lot better and creates more learning in the group, is to, okay, we have a problem statement, how would you solve it? Looking at the theoretical thing that we looked at here, we have that, let's reflect on that problem statement, and that's so much more powerful. And then you can still give them your pointers as a trainer, but again, it comes from the group. So yeah, I've, maybe to wrap that up, Magnus, I've learned over the years that the less I talk as a trainer, the better the learning facilitation is for the group.
oh, yeah, okay, right, okay. But then let's imagine someone, me, uh, actually going into something, and we're agreeing upon that, and there's an exchange. We make a promise or we make a handshake. You will deliver, and for that you get payment. But if it's only the student, why should I get paid? Don't I need to perform? All right, I'm a bit provocative now, of course. I don't
Yes.
think that way, but it's in there a little bit. It's an ingredient in the mix of
Yeah.
I need to ensure that they will have
And
the learning objectives as they walk out from this training program that they did learn. How do you balance that sense of responsibility or pressure for learning outcomes versus inspecting, adapting, and letting letting the classroom demonstrate the knowledge, which is greater? Is there a tension, or is it just in the mind?
yeah, I think it's the second one. Honestly, I think it's the second one. But the thoughts that you have now, Magnus, is those are the thoughts that I had about 5 6 years ago too. And they
Yeah.
stayed like it's not that they shifted from 0 to 1. It's they shifted over the years from deliberate inspecting and adapting and trying things out and going looking for those work forms and learning methods, and doing these experiments of completely letting go of something and see what happens in the classroom. And then also at the end of the training, ask the class how they found it. You can give them a survey, or you can do a photo of fingers or whatever. And for example, in one of the last classes I did, I said, I'm going to let them teach themselves. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to give them the content, divide them in small groups, and then each group teaches the rest in turns. And I'm only going to talk if I hear something that's really wrong, or then I'm going to jump in and talk. And I let that happen because that was new to me. And let's say the person who asked me to do the training, when I talked to it about it, he was super skeptical. He said, "Yeah, but Serge, you can't do that. The customer will do. I mean, what's going to happen?" And said, "Let me try it out. I trust this. Let's work." And then afterwards, we did a survey, and people wrote stuff down like, "This is the best training I've ever done," and the interaction and the and that's the whole thing. Is the inspection and adaptation, the activities, the trying things out, and then at the beginning, let's say you're 100% sending trainer. Your next step will not be a 20% sending trainer. Your next step will be a 90% sending trainer and an 87% sending trainer. And then, so the gradual shift of the, let's call it the power of the classroom is that's how I see it.
I'm loving the passion I'm picking up here, and it speaks to me. It resonates. It does. So what's emerging here in this mind is like, so like from a third person perspective, how important is the teacher? Why is it that I want to teach? Now, and be serious, it might be a mirror that it's not lies to look into. Is it about me? Or might you become present with the fact that you are just transient? You are supposed to be not needed. That is the end goal. The goal for me as a teacher is to be not needed, because I will not stay with the group for a lifetime, I don't think. Because if I do, I have failed. So obviously, I'm not the important person in that room. The students are. Well, I'm making this black and white, but still, though, that mindset, what would make me not needed as soon as possible? So these people have integrated new knowledge and are flying.
This triggers a couple of questions that I have for you then, Magnus.
Good.
What's the value of training? When do because our students are the customers of the training, if you like, right? When do they get value out of the training?
I had some thoughts that immediately came to mind. And we might go into the definition of knowledge, actually, and learning, and there are different types of, and it helps. There's like two axes. There's wine tasting. If the first time you've been to a wine tasting, you might be guided that someone that actually, maybe it's a bit suggestive, who knows, but you get a language to describe the experience. So they might be vanilla or berries or licorice or I don't know. And suddenly it appears that, oh, that's right. My phone is disturbing me. There's an assistant wanting to chip in there. So suddenly it appears as if I'm able to experience much more because I focus my attention on it. So when is it helpful for a student? What was the question again?
Where is the value of training? Where
is the value of training?
Get
right?
Value
Yeah.
Training?
And so as human beings, if we don't particularly want to develop, we don't. Staying with the status quo is kind of the most energy efficient way of being. Going into new and designing, integrating new knowledge and forming new habits and behaviors will challenge us. Learning costs energy. But to go into a deliberate exercise in time and space for valid reasons to upgrade myself, to be able to reach a new level of my development. That's why you need deliberate practice. Now, a classroom experience is great. if you're into like continuous improvement and like Scrum, you have the learning kind of built in. The on the job training is really well supported in the structure of Scrum. And still though, unless you have started that, like booted that self-improving system up, now wouldn't the training be a good thing to boot that system up? So that's the value. When you're going to learn a new game, like a football team, for this new season, people have carefully examined the outcome last year. And now we have discovered things that we think will improve our game. There will be a little bit of whiteboard exercise probably, and then there will be a lot of practice. But hopefully by the end of the season, we can see that it improved our game. Was that really close to an answer?
Yeah, it went in a couple of directions, but I think so. Yes. Um, I think it for me it touched on the most important points, and maybe the most powerful was something that you said in the beginning, and it was the change of behavior, the
Mm.
new learning or the possible unlearning. Um, so it's not about gathering. I mean, the value for me, the value of learning is not about just gathering the knowledge. It's about gathering the knowledge, reflecting upon it, deliberately trying it out already, and then being triggered enough by it so you're willing to try it out. Maybe that sums it up a bit for me. Um, so that also answers why do people come to training, right? I mean, why do we follow trainings? Is it just to gather knowledge, or is it to why do we want to gather that knowledge? And that's to apply it, to make it better, to solve a problem or whatever you want to do, right? So I think that links very closely to you. And then I love the football analogy again because yeah, but what do you do with what do you do when you have 10 kids? Let's say you have no. Let's take 10 adults that have never played football, and you put them on a pitch. How do we teach them football? Do you give them
Mm.
222 PowerPoint slides about the game? This is how you kick the ball, or what? Yeah. So what do? You put them on a pitch. You say these are the lines. If you go out, the ball's out, and then there's a goal, and there's a goal, and kick it in, and you just let them play, and they'll learn. And then you come back, you pull it back in as a coach or a trainer, and say, hey, look, what if we stand like this, and we do 3 defenders and 4 midfielders, and so that's like the whole doing, reflecting, theory, reflection, experimentation, doing, and I'm now deliberately touching on the 4 learning styles by Colt, but that's the whole cycling thing of training, and then that's where for me, and I'm gonna say something maybe very black and white, but that's true learning. It's doing, trying, reflecting, theory, model,
Mm.
back, forth, and if you can do that as a trainer, and it takes flight hours and trial and error and time and inspecting and adapting, but that's where we create. I think that's where we create value.
Hmm. Yeah. So if you view this, thank you so much. And what do you make of it? Like if I send out a question, how do you reason about the teacher and student, and how would you you know probe into the rules? If you're a bit curious, is it possible to redefine it for better outcomes for the entirety? And why do you want knowledge at all? I'm staying curious with this, and I think I'm taking away this. What am I taking away? I think there's a lot of things. To just trust. If being a bit tense about my responsibility as a teacher to really deliver the learnings that we said that you will get, to trust the classroom, because inevitably, and you can just reason about it, that will be the best way to get there. Do you have any final?
Yeah, that's a wonderful wrap up. I want to extend the invitation to our listeners. Like, tell us about good trainings you've had, the best trainings you've had. Tell us about the worst trainings you've had. What made that happen or not? I'm always curious about that. And yeah, I love your rap. As a trainer, trust the classroom. They will know. You only need to guide them, give them guardrails, and kind of nudge them in the right direction from time to time. And if you have your learning objectives right, because that's your starting point, what are the learning objectives? But if you have that right as a trainer, all the rest is, well, maybe that's too harsh, but I'm going to say it anyway, is circumstantial. If you guide them through those learning objectives, if you know how to guide them through it, they can learn. Trust your classroom. Nice one.
Okay then. Thanks for viewing, everyone. See you in the next one.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.